Welcome back to the Snowpoint Cast. Today we're going to be going over a deck from 2004 called Swampert. So Swampert actually didn't get any major results in 2004 that I know of. I know that it got like a top 8 in seniors, but it didn't really see play in the top 32. And I think a big reason for that is just because Blaziken was kind of like underestimated. And I think if people thought Blaziken was going to be like as good as it was, they might play this a little bit more. But yeah, so only one top 8 finish, but the deck is still really cool. And let's get right into it. So starting off with 4 Mudkip, so cute. First of all, Mitsuhiro Arita, got a do a shout out there. The homie drew this one. So 50 HP, water type, single retreat, and a weakness to lightning. Bubble is the attack, so Bubble's actually really good. So for 1 you do 10, or 1 water you do 10, and then you flip a coin. If heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. So I mean, if you have a choice for an attack on a basic, paralyzed is pretty much the best one, other than like maybe Pokemon Search. But yeah, having that paralyzed option is really, really good on Mudkip. Also so cute. And sticking with that Mitsuhiro Arita line, we got another Mitsuhiro Arita, such a dope Marshtomp. So Marshtomp, 70 HP, water type, single retreat, maintains that weakness to lightning. Keeps Bubble as well, so also pretty good. Flip a coin if heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. You know, if you don't have a stage 2 out, your best bet is just paralyzing your opponent's active a lot of the time because they can't really do anything, and you just want to wait until you can get that stage 2 out. So Bubble as a single attach on Marshtomp is also kind of cool. And then Slash for 3 colorless, 40, meh, whatever. We also play 3 regular Swampert. So Swampert has 110 HP, which is nice, definitely better than that 100. Water type, 3 retreat, so he gets pretty fat in this evolution. Still Mitsuhiro Arita. That's one of the reasons I really like this deck, is all 3 of the main evolution line are done by the OG himself. So Water Call is the ability on Swampert, really good power. So once during your turn, you may attach a water energy card from your hand to your active Pokemon. This pair can't be used if Swampert is affected by a special condition. So it's just water acceleration. It's super good. I mean, being able to accelerate waters only to the active is kind of a bummer. I think that overall Blaziken is kind of a better accelerator in this way, not only because you want energies in the discard with Delcatty, but having that it has to be active restriction can be a little bit tricky to work around sometimes, depending on what your board looks like. And the hefty retreat of Swampert too. So, but anyway, Water Call is still really good. And then Hypno Splash, or I have a German Swampert. It's called Hypnospritze in German, kind of a cool name for that attack. Hypno Splash does 50, and then the defending Pokemon is now asleep. So having that sleep is whatever. It's decent to shut off powers, and if they flip tails in the sleep, that can be good to shut a power off. But yeah, not an attack you're going to be using a ton in this deck. This Swampert is mostly just used for the acceleration, but it does one-shot Blaziken, so that's kind of cool. Being able to Oko Blaziken for an attack is definitely a solid part of the deck. And then you also play 2 Swampert EX. So this is to not only give you some bonus attacks, but also to switch your typing up. So you have the access to water and fighting type with this EX. So Swampert EX got 150 HP, pretty tanky. Fighting type, 3 retreat, weakness to grass, which makes a lot more sense, to be honest. Lightning type weakness doesn't really make sense because of the fact that he's a ground type, but whatever. Hydro Pump. So Hydro Pump's the first attack. It does 20 plus 20 more damage for each basic energy attached to Swampert EX, but not used to pay for this attack's cost. And you can't add more than 80 damage in this way. So you can hit, if you have 6 water energy on him, you can hit for a fresh 100, which is pretty, like, that's a lot of damage for sure in this format, especially be hitting for fighting type weakness. That definitely one shots like everything that's fighting weak in the format. And then Crushing Wave is the other attack, also a pretty good attack. So for a water and 2 colorless, choose one of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack does 40 damage to that Pokemon. After doing damage, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent discards an energy card, if any, attached to that Pokemon. So being able to snipe an energy discard is kind of cool. Like if your opponent is just kind of loading something on the bench, they're a little bit behind compared to you, and you got like maybe 2 Swamperts out early, and you were able to accelerate a Crushing Wave. You can hit this on turn 2, right? Because you go turn 1 attached to a Mudkip, turn 2 hit this Swampert, Water Call, and then also attach for turn, and then you can Crushing Wave. So it's kind of cool, and it sets up your knockouts later too, because you might not have all that energy to hit for a Hyper Pump knockout, but Crushing Wave can not only make it so your board has a little bit more time by potentially discarding energy, but also it like lets you snipe to be setting up for knockouts later in the game. So really, really solid attacker there. I also play 2 Skitty. I put like in every different deck kind of plays different Skitties, just because I've been testing a lot of different Skitty lines. I think a 1/1 is probably the best, but I like the 50 HP one here just because there's a lot of stuff that snipes in this format, and Ancient Technical Machine Rock is really good. So I think the 50 HP one, there's an argument to be made for that, to be playing 2 of that one as well. So this Skitty's got 50 HP, Single Retreat, weakness to fighting, energy catch is the first attack, search your discard pile for a basic energy card, show it to your opponent, put it in your hand, not an attack you're going to be using that much at all, and then Double Edge for 2, it does 30, and Skitty does 10 to itself. But the reason you play those is for Delcatty. So Delcatty's awesome, 70 HP, normal type, single retreat, and a weakness to fighting, energy draw. Once during your turn, before you attack, you can discard an energy card from your hand and draw 3. So this is great because you have a lot of energy in the deck. Like, you're meant to accelerate with Swampert, so you have a lot of energy, and if you already have the energy that you want to accelerate, just being able to draw cards by discarding that energy is really good. And you do play ways to cycle that energy back as well in Magneton, which we're going to get to in just a second. But energy draws a really great support power as a support Pokemon. And then max energy source can be okay just because you do attach to the active where you can. So there are some situations where you might be able to use this. The max energy source does 10 times the amount of energy attached to all your active Pokemon. Kind of tricky wording there. Back in 2004, there used to be double battles. In this format, that's not a thing, but all of your active Pokemon was just like both of your actives. It was meant for that. You also play 2 Magnemite. So you play the Thundershock Magnemite just because you play multi-energy, and I think that's correct in this deck to be playing this Magnemite. Different decks might be playing a different Magnemite, but this one plays the 50 HP one with lightning type, retreat cost of 1, and a weakness to fighting. Thundershock is the attack. So for 1 lightning, you do 10 and then flip a coin. If heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. Usually, if I'm attacking with a basic like that, instead of a Dunsparce, then that means that I'm in a dicey spot. So being able to hit that paralyzed is definitely a really good option to have. And then you also play 2 Magnetons. So Magneton's got 70 HP, a single retreat, resistance to metal, and a weakness to fighting. The magnetic field is the power. Once on your turn, you can, if you have a basic energy in your discard, you can discard a card from your hand and then take up to 2, if you have 2, back to your hand. So that's really cool because it keeps your Delcatty infinite cycling. Like, you just discard a card, get 2 energy back, and then you essentially get to draw 6. I will say something to be wary of, especially if you're kind of new to 2004. It can be really tempting to just discard cards with magnetic field, get the energy back, and just infinitely Delcatty, right? Because there's no reason not to have a massive hand, except there is. And there's actually 2 main reasons for that. The first one is watching so you don't deck yourself, because if you're drawing way too many cards, you can just get a really thin deck, and it's really easy to deck out in this format. And then the other one is Copycat is a really big meta supporter card. So if you do have a massive hand for no reason, like let's say you already have the resources in your hand, be like, I may as well use energy draw. That's actually technically a misplay in some situations, because if your opponent has a Copycat, they can Copycat for even more cards. And if you have the resources in your hand, then why Delcatty? So it's kind of a tricky card to play with optimally, but Magneton and Delcatty, really cool combo of cards, really good Pokemon for sure. They also play 4 Dunsparce. So Dunsparce has got 50 HP, colorless, single retreat, and a weakness to fighting. Strike and run the first attack. For single colorless, search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench. Shuffle your deck afterward. You may switch Dunsparce with one of your bench Pokemon. I always point out it's so funny that strike and run Dunsparce is just like such a doof that he forgets to strike. There's no damage on this attack, so he kind of just like runs. Search and run would have been a better name, but what are you gonna do? So it's a really solid attack to set up. I mean, you can find like a Mudkip, a Skitty, and a Magnemite, or like a Mudkip, 2 Mudkips and a Skitty or something, kind of depending on what the hand is. And then yeah, it's just a great setup Pokemon. And then the second attack, Sudden Flash, for 1 colorless does 10. Flip a coin, if heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. So there's a ton of basics in this deck that have a paralyze out, which is actually really clutch if you're lagging behind a little bit in the setup department. Like if your opponent is a turn ahead of you on setup and you're not really setting up, having that option to Sudden Flash while you just have that turn, while you wait until you can evolve, it comes up a lot more frequently than you might think in this format. And then you also play 1 Suicuine EX. So Suicuine is a really cool EX card. So Suicuine EX has got 100 HP, water type, 2 retreat, and a weakness to lightning. So energy flip is the first attack. It says choose one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. This attack does 10 damage to that Pokemon. You may move an energy card attached to that Pokemon to another one of your opponent's Pokemon. So again, similar to this Swampert, they kind of have some synergy with one another. You're just able to kind of deny that energy early, with Suicune especially early, just because you're able to hit that like turn 1 if you have a water and a Suicune out. So that's kind of a really cool energy denial tactic. And then the other attack, Reverse Stream, is also really good. So for a water colorless, you may return all basic energy cards attached to Suicune X to your hand. If you do this, deck does 50 plus 10 damage for each basic energy card you discarded. Each energy card you return, not discarded. I don't know why I read discarded. Anyway, so that's really good because it has a lot of synergy with Swampert, right? Like you're able to return 2 energies to your hand, and then if the Suicuine is active, or if you have even 3 out, you can do more and take all the energy off. So not only are you taking the energy off that Pokemon, so that if it goes down, you can keep that energy in the hand, so you can water call it, but also you can just infinite it, right? Like you hit for 80 if you discard 3, so you hit for 80, get the energy back, use triple water call, and then do it again. So really, really cool cycling card that you can just do over and over if you have a really good setup of Swampert in play. Okay, so getting into the trainer cards now. You're going to be playing 3 Rare Candy. Rare Candy is a really solid card, so choose one of your opponent's Pokemon, or choose one of your basic Pokemon in play. If you have a stage 1 or stage 2 card that evolves from that Pokemon in your hand, put that card on that basic Pokemon. So you can play this card on turn 2 because you can't play trainers turn 1. But yeah, being able to go turn 2 Rare Candy into Swampert, or depending on what your board looks like, maybe a turn 2 Rare Candy Delcatty if you really have nothing and your opponent's putting a ton of pressure on. That's an option that you have as well, but it's just to get your stage 2s out there. This will play a Crystal Shard. This is a very specific tech for Dragon type Pokemon, and the Dragon type Pokemon that this is meant for is Rayquaza EX, because that is one of the things that can really threaten your board. You don't have anything that can really one-shot it unless you have a Swampert EX with max energy. So yeah, just being, or I guess the Suicuine EX can kill it too if you have like 5 energy on it. But not having to hit that 5 energy is really cool, because Crystal Shard, what it does is it makes you turn whatever Pokemon it's attached to like colorless. So dragons back in the day used to be colorless type. They were weak to colorless instead of, you know, dragon weak to dragon, or fairy nowadays. But being able to turn yourself colorless with a Swampert, like you're doing 50. So you turn yourself colorless and then you hit them and the Crystal Shard gets discarded, but you got to hit them for 100 damage, double damage, which kills a Rayquaza EX. And what the EX or Blaziken matchup comes down to sometimes is how effectively you can trade your EXs. Because, you know, Suicuine EX, while it is a good attacker and you can take out a Suicuine with it, one of the big benefits of Crystal Shard is you can put it on like a non-EX, like a Swampert. So you put it on a Swampert and then you can hit for ×2 weakness on the opposing Rayquaza EX, but you don't have to worry about getting counter knocked out. Like even if you do get counter knocked out, let's say they have excuse me, a Blaziken EX on the bench ready to be able to knock you out. Even if they have that and you have a damage on your Swampert from a Blaziken earlier, they kill the Swampert and you're like, cool, that's fine, that's one prize, and then you're trading prizes favorably because you're able to take 2 off the Ray, they take 1 off your Swampert, and then if you're able to kill their Blaziken EX back, which when you have water typing is pretty easy to do, like Suicuine EX definitely can smack a Blaziken EX around. You're just trading positively because you take 2 prizes, they take 1, then you're taking another 2, and now the prize count is 4-1. So really, really solid card at getting you a little bit ahead in the game, especially against Blaziken, because that's a deck you're meant to beat. So you also play one switch. Switch is just to, you know, move your Pokemon around. You have to be in the active position if you want to use Water Call on a Pokemon. So that's just important. And also getting your Dunsparce out, finding a Dunsparce, getting the active and getting it out of the active are also important parts of the deck. Okay, so you also play 2 Mystery Zones. This is kind of an interesting stadium. So Mystery Zone says once during each player's turn before he or she attacks, if that player... This text is so small. Usually I can read it, but it's like really small. If that player has an evolution card in his or her hand, she may search his or her deck. See, I'm just going to take a second to just like rant about how bad old Pokemon, like look at this absolute wall of text, like so much text, because they're just like his or her, he or she's. Now they just like theirs. So way better that they figured that out. And like the old cards are so rough like that. But essentially you put an evolution card into your deck, or you can put an evolution card into your deck and then search for a basic energy card. So you put an evolution card back and then you get basic energy, which is solid for Water Call. Being able to get waters for Water Call is really good. And also water energy for Delcatty. I mean, finding energy is just a pretty vital part of the deck. So Mystery Zone is a really great part of that. Okay, so getting into the supporter cards now, you're going to be playing 4 Oracle. So Oracle, it's one of your cards that lets you hit your combo pieces. So it says choose 2 cards from your deck and put them on the top of your deck, and then shuffle the other cards in your deck. And then the reason this is really good is because you can combo with Delcatty, right? So you go like draw for turn, Oracle, use energy draw 3, and then you're hitting 2 cards guaranteed in your deck. So it's really good to hit your combos. Like let's say you need a Rare Candy and a Swampert EX, or like a multi-energy and a Swampert EX. It just lets you find whatever you need. Deck also plays 3 Steven's Advice. So Steven's Advice, super solid supporter card, really staple in this format. Draw a number of cards up to the number of your opponent's Pokemon in play. If you have more than 7 cards, including this one in your hand, you can't play this card. So if like this card, it actually got errated. So if you have 7 or more, including this one, you cannot play it. So kind of a bad part. And one thing that I will say about Steven's Advice is you have to be careful about your sequencing, because if you, let's say you have like 5 cards in your hand, one of them's an energy, and you use Delcatty first before you Steven's Advice, you might lock yourself out of a supporter per turn, because you discard a card, go down to 4, and then you go up 3 to 7. And if you have a Steven's Advice in your hand that you didn't use before, you're going to get locked out of that. So kind of just be careful of that if you're playing this deck. Okay, you also play 3 Copycat. Like I was saying, Copycat's an amazing supporter in this format. So shuffle your hand to your deck and then count the number of cards in your opponent's hand and draw that many cards. So with Delcatty being such a staple support Pokemon, Copycat is also a staple supporter. It's just a really good, there's a lot of synergy with it, and Delcatty, just because your opponent wants to have a massive hand, right? Like you may as well have options if you have the option to have more cards in your hand. But with that option also comes the downfall of your opponent potentially being able to draw a ton of cards with Copycat. So that's a really, really solid card in this format. You also play 2 Professor Elm's Training Method. So Elm's Training Method, search your deck for an evolution card, show it to your opponent, put it in your hand. The reason you play this is mostly just find your EX Pokemon, Swampert EX. I mean, you can play other stuff as well to do that, but Elm's Training Method is just really important to find your evolutions for sure in this deck. You also play 1 Desert Shaman. So Desert Shaman, shuffle your hand to your deck and draw 4, and then your opponent does the same. So it's a good hand disruption. I mean, there's no real hand disruption in this format other than Desert Shaman, so I think it's worth as a one-of, especially when hand sizes can get a little bit out of control with Delcatty and Magneton. So being able to nerf your opponent's hand size if they have a massive hand and you really don't want them to have that many cards in their hand is a great option to have in this deck. You also play 1 Town Volunteers. So Town Volunteers says take 5 baby Pokemon, basic Pokemon, or evolution Pokemon, and or basic energy cards from your discard pile, show them to your opponent, and shuffle in your deck. So this is a late game recovery supporter. So it helps you find your it depends what the board looks like, right? Like if you played an optimal game and you're attacking with Swamperts a lot, usually this is going to be getting your Swamperts back. But depending on what you're playing against, like if your opponent was able to take out some of your support Pokemon, you might need to put those back as well, or the energies as well. It can also be really solid to just put energies back. Speaking of energy, we are going to get into this deck's energies. So this deck plays a fat 12 water energy. Just, you know, finding your water energy so that you can use Water Call with Swampert is really important. And also, like, I mean, Mystery Zone, 2 Mystery Zone and 12 water means you have like 12 hard outs and 14 soft outs, which is a lot. That's a ton of outs to find your energy. And it just makes sense, right? Like Water Call is the point of the deck, so play a lot of basic water energy. And then you also play 3 multi-energy. Oh, so I didn't even mention this, but this is something that can actually come up. Magneton's attack is actually pretty good in this deck. So Magnetic Force does 10 damage times the amount of energy attached to all your Pokemon. So since you're accelerating energy a lot, you do have the option to attack for lightning type as well in this deck. So that can be really good depending on what you're facing down. Like in the mirror, that can be really good, especially because you one-shot a Swampert, right? So kind of depends on what your board looks like, but having a multi-energy out to use the Magneton and also for the top of the swamp. Never fighting attack. But yeah, multi-energy for the Magneton is really, really clutch because Magneton is a great attacker in this deck sometimes. Okay, well, yeah, this has been Swampert from the 2004 format. We are doing a giveaway. For those that don't know, we're doing a giveaway of 500 subs, a giveaway and a face reveal. So if you're not subscribed, click that button and maybe get involved in this giveaway. And if you're feeling like a super homie, leave a comment for the algorithm. The YouTube algorithm gods would really appreciate that, and so would I. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.